By way of introduction to our next speaker, and I'm not going to go over his biography, I'm sure he'll introduce himself enough. I am a subscriber to the State newspaper. I used to subscribe to the Post and Courier, but then they endorsed Lindsey Graham in 2020. I said, well, I ain't putting up with that nonsense. So I canceled that subscription and subscribed to the State. I was reading this op-ed earlier this year from a teacher who said all the things that I felt was happening with government intrusion into the classroom. And I made a copy of his opinion piece on everybody's table so you can take a read of it. And I said, this is a gentleman that I need to get to know and would love to have speak, because we know there are many educators and former educators. Raise your hand if you are a teacher or a former teacher. And I'll put myself in that mix. Look at that, dozens. So I know that the education system is very precious to many of us. We take it to heart. And what's happening with the state government and our public school system, it being utterly dismantled day by day in front of our eyes, we can stop it, but we need to put the right people in place to do so. So without further ado, let me introduce all the way from Lexington, the 2023 South Carolina History Teacher of the Year, Mr. Michael Burgess.
Good morning. Oh, come on now. I had to get up after my first week of work. That's right. I went back on Tuesday at 6:30 in the morning to drive over here. We can have a little bit more energy than that. Good morning. All right. Where's fired up, ready to go? I'm sorry. Can I get one? Can I get one? Can I please get one? This is like on my bucket list. Now, what she doesn't know is I'm going to really need her Wednesday morning about 8:30 in classroom A211 at River Bluff High School in Lexington to wake up my students who will not be fired up. They're not going to be ready to go. And they really, really wish they could go back and go to bed. So let me preface my being here this morning with this. I'm not here as a Republican or a Democrat. I'm not here as a conservative or a liberal. I'm not here as a Protestant or Catholic. I'm not even here as a tiger or a gamecock. But I am here as a Christian, as a husband, as a father to 4 children, as a teacher going into his 30th year, and as someone who is deeply, deeply, deeply concerned about our nation and our state. I am not like the gentleman before you, young and inexperienced. Okay, I'm not even good looking. I don't know what Bill intended by putting me up after him, other than to say that if you've taught for 30 years and you change, right? And some of you wonder, is the pressure really difficult on teachers? Absolutely, because 30 years ago when I started, I was blonde hair, blue eye, cute little nose. Look at me now. A wise man once wrote, "A primary object should be the education of our youth in the science of government. In a republic, what species of knowledge can be equally important? And what duty is more pressing than communicating it to those who are to be the future guardians of the liberties of our country?" That wise man was George Washington, someone who also stepped away from office like our president so that the nation could move forward. Throughout my 29 years of teaching, I have and will always believe that history must be taught fully, fairly, and honestly, or else we have a limited understanding of the past with no way to explain the present and no hope of building a better future. Now, no time period is more important for our students to fully grasp as the future leaders of our republic than that of the American Revolution. Now, granted, I consider the American Revolution to have started in 1763, and the end date has not been reached. So why should the American Revolution matter to our children? Why is it essential that they engage in the study of this? Why is it essential that everyone here take advantage of the 250th anniversary of our nation's birth? Why is the 250th a potential turning point? Not 250 years ago, but the right here and right now in America, in South Carolina, and in beautiful Greenwood County. Well, first, the American Revolution secured the independence of the United States from Great Britain. Second, the American Revolution established a republic which has endured over 248 years, dedicated to the interest of ordinary people rather to the interest of monarchs, aristocrats, and would-be former presidents who wish to be an authoritarian ruler. Y'all are y'all good with that? You know, do I need to say the man's name? You know, this week he wondered if Vice President Harris was black, and when did she turn black? And I was sitting there wondering, well, when did you turn orange? Third, the American Revolution created our national identity, a sense of history based on shared history and culture, mutual experience, and a belief in a common destiny that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that these being life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Fourth, the American Revolution committed the new nation to the ideals of liberty, equality, natural and civil rights, and responsible citizenship that made this country the basis of a new political order in the world. We have seen the spread and acceptance of this new political order for 248 years. We have seen our journey as a people, as a nation, the journey and the struggle to reach for all people the natural rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. American democracy, our republic embodied by the Constitution, has become the blueprint for political and economic success for the nation state and the modern world. Yet the revolution is not ended. The work is unfinished. There is much to be done. The goal set by the Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal has not been fully realized. Even more disconcerting, here on the eve of the 250th anniversary of our nation's birth, is that the legacy of the American Revolution and all of its gains in the name of liberty and equality is in jeopardy. Abroad, democracies, young and old, across the globe, are threatened by expansionist authoritarian regimes in Iran, Russia, and China who want nothing more than to extinguish the light of liberty that has shone and spread over 248 years. And then at home, our democracy is being threatened from extremists who are on both the far left and the far right, who are tearing at the inner fabric of our nation. They rip apart the ties that unite us. They distort what it means to be an American, and they turn you and I against others who are committed to this democracy. Now, any grasp of who we are as Americans requires an understanding of the American Revolution. Without it, we are an uninformed and flawed citizenry at best. At worst, we are the authors of our own demise as a nation. The youth of America are the key to the future of our republic. Yet it seems today that they do not grasp or understand or care about the American Revolution or American history in any time period. Now, the relevance for this, for the future, was spoken about many years ago, and I might get booed on this one, but today he would probably be with you, by President Ronald Reagan in his farewell address on January 11th, 1989. He spoke of what was needed then and what is needed today. And informed patriotism is what we want. And are we doing a good enough job teaching our children what America is and what she represents in the long history of the world? Those of us, he goes on to speak, who are 35 or so years of age, grew up in a different America. We were taught very directly what it means to be an American. And we absorbed almost in the air a love of country and an appreciation of its institutions. However, in 2024, there seems to be a misconception, a misunderstanding about our youth and their willingness to embrace the legacy of the American Revolution and the legacy of all of American history. The widespread perception, maybe even in this room, is that our children are not interested in learning and embracing and understanding American history, whether it's George Washington to Booker T. Washington to Dr. Martin Luther King to JFK to RFK to today. They don't know, they don't care, they don't want to learn. Well, I'm here to tell you today, and I might get booed for this as well, not that I'm asking to get booed, that if our children don't know, if they don't care, whether it's about the Revolution or all of American history, it is because the adults have failed them. Our public school system and current political culture confines our ability to teach not just the American Revolution, but all of United States history. Let facts stand. Let the facts stand on their own merit. First of all, look at the time devoted to whether it is the Revolution or all of American history at the different levels of school. In elementary school, I've had 4 children go through there. 1 has graduated to college. I got 2 at the Citadel. 1 will be a senior. 1 is going to be a knob come next Saturday morning at this time. I'm going to throw him out the car and run. But my 12-year-old, the most recent child in elementary school, will tell you. When I asked her, how much time did you spend on the American Revolution? 30 minutes. I asked later in the year, when they were doing civil rights, how much time did you spend on Dr. Martin Luther King? 30 minutes. Did you cover Malcolm X? Who? I did make her watch clips from Spike Lee's X. I did grow a little concerned when she started jumping up and saying, yeah. 30 minutes on our nation's founding. What about in middle school? Well, you do have a year, 8th grade, focused on South Carolina history, like South Carolina is outside of the Union. Now, I know we were at one point for 4 years. It didn't really work. No matter what those on the other side of the political divide say about how great it would be to secede, I tried to remind them that, yeah, it was great. We managed to get Columbia burned to the ground. How much time, I asked one of my teacher friends, do you spend on the American Revolution in 8th grade? A week. A week. And then at the high school level, how much time do we spend? Sadly, I'm here to say across the board, generally 2 weeks, maybe 3. Now, I'm a bit of a rebel. I don't know if you've noticed this or not. See people looking at their phones, so I'm going to have to pop a joke in here soon. Or take their cell phones, given we have this new cell phone policy. But in all seriousness, I'm a bit of a rebel. I spend a little bit longer. But on the whole, maybe 2 to 3 weeks, expecting them to understand this most vital of periods. Issue number 2, our obsession with testing. It kills social studies in elementary school. Do you know why? Can anybody tell me why? You don't have to come up to the mic. Not even that. Not even that. Guess what? We don't test social studies in elementary school. So guess what? It's on the super back burner. Therefore, like my daughter, Madeline, told me, 30 minutes. It undermines U.S. history in high school. How? Now, shout out what you were just saying. Dates, dead people and dates. What else? Anything else? Huh? Yeah. Well, no, it's tested, but dead people and dates. And not only that, you're expected to teach from 1491 to 2016 and know all the dead people and dates for a high-stakes test that will count 20% of your student's grade, will end up on your school report card, and will get the district office, central services, down your throat should your test scores not be lovely. And for what? How many of you pay taxes here in South Carolina? Raise your hands. You don't pay taxes in South Carolina? All right, great. Well, guess what? It's coming. And if you do pay taxes, and we started this testing program for U.S. history, the state in the course exam in 2008, we have spent millions of your dollars on data we can't use. What feedback do I get? So let's say Bill, who is like, is Burgess going to adhere to the time period? Is he going to adhere to the 20-minute rule? Bill, I'm going to tell you, probably not. I drove a long way to speak a lot of words, but I'll try to keep it entertaining. And you can give me any signal you want. My eyesight is bad. I won't see it. But let's say Bill is in my U.S. history class. You know what I get back from our lovely State Department of Ed on Bill after the U.S. history of the course exam? I get a number. That's all I get. Bill scored 65. He scored a 65. That tells me nothing. It tells him nothing. It tells his American government teacher the next year nothing. You guys have spent your money on this from the State Department of Ed. And what does that mean? We have lost the opportunity to educate generation after generation on who we are and what it means to be an American. Issue number 3, we've erased the war in our standards. Any war, pick a war. Okay, you do have to know in the Revolution the significance of 3 battles: Lexington, Concord, Saratoga, Yorktown, and literally you teach it like that, or are supposed to, and move on. But how does one understand the significance of the Declaration and those words, all men are created equal, without appreciating those brave soldiers over time whose sacrifice and courage made these ideals a possibility for this nation? In fact, let's take a moment here. If you are a veteran, please stand and be recognized. Give them a big hand. They are the embodiment of a tradition that began 250 years ago where citizen soldiers stand up for the ideals of American democracy. Yet we don't want to teach that in our schools. Issue number 4, senior year, American government. Are you a senior? Where'd you graduate from? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm a graduate of Travelers Rest. So when the young lady here graduated from Wren, did you have to take a citizenship test in your government class? You probably don't remember, do you? You know why? We have this law, they love laws. We have this law that says every senior must take a citizenship test. Every senior. It doesn't count. It's only at our school 10 questions. You pop the score into the database and it goes wherever, for example, maybe they stored at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Ark of the Covenant. So think about that. There's 0 repercussions if our students can't demonstrate mastery of basic citizenship knowledge. And we wonder why those folks ended up storming the Capitol on January 6th when at some point they graduated from a school somewhere, even here in South Carolina, and didn't have to demonstrate an understanding of citizenship knowledge, such as the peaceful transition of power. So how in the world can we expect our graduates to be active, informed, involved citizens to show up at meetings like this if we have no idea whether they know what that means? Issue number 5. Don't worry, Bill, it's the last issue. Then I get into the big sell and everybody walks out of here with homework. Am I good? I mean, you tell me, I can speed it up. All right. Issue 5 is systematic. Raise your hand if you're one of my fellow current or former teachers. So this is going to be preaching to the choir. Issue 5 is across the board. We have a shortage and loss of teachers due to large class sizes, long hours, bureaucratic overreach. Keep in mind, Robert F. Kennedy, he's on my Mount Rushmore of political leaders. And I'm going to paraphrase the quote, but once said, for every problem there is a program, and for every program there are hundreds, if not thousands, of bureaucrats working earnestly. He could have been speaking of the system in public education in South Carolina, even in your district here today. And among those bureaucrats, you have planners and organizers to justify their bloated salaries, who micromanage everything from when you can sneeze to when you can go to the bathroom. Yes, storm clouds are gathering, not just for the future of teaching the American Revolution, but all of United States history. Understand, teachers are walking. Even in the last few years, and I've had a blessed last few years, I have been recognized now 4 times in the last 2 years for some statewide history teacher award. I understand I'm getting a 5th this spring, which is great. It's led to 0 increase in my salary. But even I have considered leaving. Even I have considered leaving. And why? Well, we're tired of being the culture war piñata. We get hit by the Republicans on Monday. We get hit by some of the Democrats on Tuesday. We get hit by the media on Wednesday. Thursday, the district office takes a chunk out of her behind. And then Friday, the parent of the golden child reaches out to you and wonders why the golden child, who got a 94 on their test, didn't get a 100. Because they have to have a certain grade point average and class rank so they can get in to Rocco's School of Typewriting at some place in Massachusetts. We have been used time and time again, but never more so than in the last few years for political gain by elected officials. The frightening thing is what was once a show is now reality. The Freedom Caucus has managed to do a number of things. Our state superintendent of education, who I worked both in the Republican Party and in the general election to make sure she didn't see the light of day, the office itself. Because she's dangerous, y'all. She's dangerous. And you see it now. This week, we had the round robin. When you come back and the administrators tell you everything. And I had multiple teachers who never complained talk about, well, that was great. I found out all the things I can't do and all the things I can do to get fired. Everything from the superintendent of ed's push to have every bit of instructional material vetted by the State Department led 2 English teachers to tell me, well, I'm not going to be able to teach Shakespeare. I'm not going to be able to teach Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. And I'm not going to be able to teach To Kill a Mockingbird. We have new provisos. Yay! One on gender identity, which requires that if someone came to me and wanted to be called by a different name, I have to walk them down to guidance. The principal comes over. They have to call their parent, and there are no safeguards for that child if that parent ends up being an abusive parent. That came out of your legislature. And then there's the ongoing critical race theory proviso. And because bureaucrats are going to bureaucrat, I often wonder if the lawyers at the district level are the ones running school districts. I'm like, why in the hell are we paying a superintendent $250,000? Let's just pay the lawyer. But the bureaucrat that is head of social studies for the district, who only taught 2 years in the classroom 20 years ago, basically said, be careful, you might think about not teaching lynching. Well, now, how in the heck are you going to teach the Jim Crow South the struggles we've all had if you don't teach lynching? How are you going to be able to teach the civil rights movement without teaching Bloody Sunday? Or the bombing of the 16th Street Church? Well, you might not want to show pictures of that. So I'm a bit of a smart aleck. You might have picked that up on that. I was a nice kid once. I said, well, what about pictures of Emmett Till in the casket? Well, I don't think we should show those. Really? Because his mother did, and it inspired the civil rights movement. So a feeling of Custer's last stand has emerged. I always wondered what Custer felt like when he stood on top of Little Bighorn and realized he led his men into a massacre. I now know this. And it's dangerous, y'all, because it leads to neutral vanilla plain rice cake learning experiences, and in turn our students learn nothing about the founding era or America at large. It stifles innovation, creativity, the willingness to have students engage in debate and civil discourse. So is it any wonder our children appear to be apathetic and ignorant about our history and our past? And is it any wonder our society is so polarized and fractured today? I'm here to tell you this morning, though, that this is your problem, every bit as it is ours in education. And to address it, we must all work together. We can't come to the table with this as a Republican or a Democrat, a conservative or a liberal or a tiger or a gamecock. President Kennedy, in his inaugural address, and perhaps you know this, gave the great quote that applies to this room today: ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Well, ask not what your children, your students can do for you. Ask what you can do for your students. And all great change begins in rooms like this with a few basic questions. How can I make a difference? How can I help my community in a time of crisis? How can I ensure future generations of young people will know what it means to be an American? Am I willing to do what I can do to better our nation? And everyone here can do one simple thing: make your voices heard. Make your voices heard. For true patriots to be silent is dangerous, Sam Adams wrote in 1766. We need you to speak for us, for our children. Because legislative acts that impact teaching of the American Revolution, of American history, of every subject, need to have teacher input. This hasn't happened. As I mentioned, and I'm not touting my resume, Mr. Robinson's about to fall asleep, so I'm going to try to wrap it up here soon, eventually. I've won a number of awards. Certainly, legislators have reached out to say, how can we improve our education system? Or how can we improve U.S. history? Or I read your op-ed, what do we need to do? To date, I've had a combined aggregate total of 0 calls. 0. And we wonder why we don't have change. We need to institute a cost-efficient and common-sense system of testing that provides information that you are paying for that I can use. We need to realize war must be taught because it's not about dead people and dates, but real people facing real challenges, making real decisions with real consequences that provide real lessons that our students can learn from. We need to require our students to demonstrate mastery on the United States citizenship test before they can receive the required course credit for American government class, a class needed for graduation. Yes, I'm tying graduation to your ability, you're happy you graduated already, to your ability to demonstrate you understand what it means to be an American and what American citizenship is. And finally, we need to embrace a new approach to teaching. That it means instead of creating a safe space for our students, we are charged with building a brave space for the free exchange of ideas. This is accomplished through the implementation of interactive protocols that help develop the necessary critical thinking and analytical skills essential to true comprehension. And only through this can our students fully learn the rich history of our nation and become active, involved citizens ready to lead the United States into the future. George Washington, upon resigning his commission as general in 1783, wrote, "At this auspicious period, the United States came into existence as a nation, and if their citizens should not be completely free and happy, the fault will be entirely their own. If we forget what we did in the American Revolution, if we fail to teach the principles of the American Revolution and honor those across time who have upheld them, we won't know who we are in a generation. The eradication of the American memory could result ultimately in an erosion of the American spirit. And without the American spirit, what future do we have as a nation? It will indeed be our fault, yours and mine, if we lose our freedom and happiness. It will be us that if the big orange man, it'll be our fault if the big orange man returns to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue." In this time of national divide, our national renewal begins with our children understanding, recognizing, appreciating what America is and what it means to be an American through the lens of the American Revolution and all of American history. Today I ask you, if you do not help us, if you do not help our children, if you do not help our state, if you do not help our nation, then who will? May God bless each and every one of you, and may God bless the United States of America. Sure, I'd love to talk a little bit.
All right, we have time for just one or two questions. Does anybody want to come up first?
This is a question about a practical approach. You deal with young people. I'm defining folks who are going to be 18 to 35.
Okay.
Understanding that they don't have a good basics in American history or civics, how the three branches of government work. But it's important for us now to convince them to be a part of this election. And I'm not talking about going out and speaking to strangers. I'm talking about how we as individuals can speak to that age group in our immediate family and in our communities. Have you seen any way that we can approach that conversation that engages?
Oh, absolutely. And one thing, I don't know if you know anything about River Bluff High School, but I am blessed to have been there since its opening in 2013. It's one of the leaders in the state. We have implemented structures to do just what you've said. We have currently the largest Young Democrats chapter in the state. We also have, the largest Teen Republicans chapter in the state. However, they meet together. They meet together. And I asked them when they came to me, because I've sponsored both since the beginning, and I said, well, why do y'all want to do this? I thought it was great. He said, because we don't want to be like the people that are out there today. And so in terms of having these conversations, it begins with getting our youth involved. I don't see too many young people here today. But then I would ask, what do we not have a Young Democrats club at Greenwood High School or Emerald? Does this group have a Young Democrats outreach? Have you reached out to students? Have you reached out to children? If you haven't, you have to. And I understand that if you were to call Greenwood High School on Monday and say, hey, I want to do this, that, and the other, you probably hit the big bureaucratic stone wall. You need to where are my teachers again? These are the people you need to engage to get a hold of our youth. And we're not asking anyone to indoctrinate them. My school and my school district got sued by the Freedom Caucus because we were supposedly teaching critical race theory, which really culminated in the fact that we believed that everybody should be treated equal. They had a problem with that. What other questions do we have? Yes, sir.
How you doing, Mr. Mike?
I'm doing good, and I love the T-shirt. A man's got Purple Rain prints. Most of us are old enough to remember that.
My name's Jeremiah, and I was reading your paper. I see this George Orwell quote. He's one of my favorite authors. I've read.
Yeah,
both
by the way, that'll be banned too, but go
Animal
ahead.
Farm and 1984, and you say the most effective way to destroy people is to deny and obliterate their own understanding of their history. And we talk about American history. What are your thoughts as far as when American history is spoken, people that look like me, slavery is where American history starts for us. One, what does that set as an image of people that look like me?
Mm-hmm.
And then two, people that don't look like me, is there any empathy if it's not even taught?
Yes, so once again, and again, hopefully this convinces all of you to come to River Bluff. One of the things that I have sort of championed and been ahead of at River Bluff is somehow I ended up as the campus historian and archaeologist. It's really what got me there. And over the last decade, we have researched, done archaeology, et cetera, and what has emerged is a story of the African American community on our campus, from when the campus was part of a 1,600-acre plantation, to where a Reconstruction-era church was built, to where the community endured Jim Crow, to the service and sacrifice of one of the members of that community as a World War I soldier in the 371st, an African-American regiment. Everybody hears about the Harlem Hellfighters, and the only reason is because they're from Harlem. This unit was better. I'm biased. And what we've done with that is every year now for 6 years, I train my students to give the 6 or 7 stop tour in February to 500 members of the sophomore class over 10 days. And making the point that this is not just African American history, this is American history, and it must be taught fully, fairly, and honestly. The other piece is myself and some others in the community, a few years ago, I stumbled across a story of a lynching in Lexington, the first lynching documented on the monument in Montgomery, of a young 16-year-old boy. And I did the research, and I'm a writer from the state newspaper, and I wrote a couple articles. And this past spring, we did a podcast. And we had, for the kickoff, we had an open session in our cafeteria, and it was packed with students and adults, white and black. And you begin telling that story. Our students are developing that empathy, but here's the problem. River Bluff is one school, and I am one teacher, and I am not freaking doing this forever. We have to begin to spread this type of approach across the state. And I'll come here to Greenwood and work with any teachers, but we have to.
Hello, I'm a political scientist and economist, and I teach dual enrollment at Piedmont Technical College. 250 years ago, Adam Smith brought the concept of economics. What are your feelings on our students understanding the economy?
Well, not to dismiss your question, but I'm going to tell you why you probably are like, yeah, I probably shouldn't ask this dude this question. So my freshman year in college, I made a D- in economics. I then had to take it again, and I made a C-. So I'll be point blank honest. If there's anything economics I'm teaching in U.S. history, I go get the AP macroeconomics teacher, because if I try to teach it, they'll just end up completely lost. But certainly in the fabric of U.S. history, and in this current climate where, let's face it, you talk about government spending, et cetera, and that's the boogeyman. I do a lot with Franklin Roosevelt. I do a lot with the New Deal. I do a lot with President Obama's response to the Great Recession and show that there is a place for presidential action in the federal government in times of economic calamity. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's essentially where I come from.
No, you got it. But note, Project 2025 will collapse the economy.
Oh, absolutely. I haven't read the 900 pages. I've read the Wikipedia page, and that's all I needed to read to realize that's some weird stuff, and that's some scary stuff. So I see Bill is on stage, and I would really love to come back sometime. So thank you very much.
Every word was good. Boy, I want to thank Mike for a very interesting talk. I was riveted, although I will say, as a graduate of Wacko School of Typewriting in Massachusetts, I'm a little offended. But that's just me.